Hello, music lovers. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for tuning in and Happy New Year to you as well. In this video, I'm going to take a look at the best and worst of 2019. That's right. We're going to cover a lot of ground. This could be a long one, so get ready. You know, we're going to laugh, we're going to cry, we're going to shake our heads at the lunacy of 2019, and we're also going to get answers to some questions like which music video released this year was a goof on an old Rod Stewart video. Well, tonight's the night we find out. Also, I'll read some of your comments and get answers to questions like, did I really buy up all the hair dye at Burt Reynolds' estate sale? Also, will you be able to guess who is standing with me in this long lost photo? I'll look back on a few concerts I didn't get a chance to review this year. Also, we'll say goodbye to some artists that left their mark and went away too soon. All that and more from the year that once was. Stay tuned. All right, so yeah, we got a lot to get through in this video, and the first thing I want to do is thank you, my viewers, and thanks so much for clicking like on these videos. It helps get them in front of other fans. Thanks for making comments. I love the interactions that we have, and thanks for subscribing too. And even if you don't subscribe, maybe you're just lurking and you like to watch the channel, but for some reason you just can't. I don't know what it is. Just can't push that button. Look, there's channels that I watch that I don't subscribe to, so don't feel bad, but if you ever do want to hit that button, that's fine. I'm not going to bite you. Everything is cool, all right? One of the things that I want to get out of the way, first of all, because no comment video would be complete without this topic getting covered, and that is the rug that is supposedly on my head. Now, this is something that goes back to my very first comment video. I've done a few of these. People seem to think that I'm wearing a hairpiece, that I color my hair, and it's kind of like the running joke with a lot of you that watch this channel. The truth is, I'm all natural. This is my real hair. There's no color going on, but that doesn't stop people from wigging out. Let's look at some comments. This one came in from Jolie. But aren't you deceiving others with that ultra-natural Grecian formula hair color? Or is it a rug? Nice paint job on your eyebrows and stash, by the way. Either way, you're more than a bit of a hypocrite. This comment came on a Kiss video where I was talking about how they deceived the fans, by putting band members on the album cover that didn't play on the album, or they're in the credits, but they didn't play on the album. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm getting hit with. Also, Paul's wig is much better than the squirrel this guy's on his head. Or how about this one? Factual post. Just curious, Grecian Formula 16 or just for men? And yeah, Kiss has blown it big time. Or how about this one from Hey Would You Do Me? Did you go to Burt Reynolds' estate sale and buy up all his leftover hair dye? So what I really want to say to all you guys out there wigging out over my hair is thank you for the compliments. And actually I have too much here. I got to get a chop. If you want some, let me know. I'll send it to you. All right. So for those of you who watch this channel on a regular basis, you know that I recently moved. I found some stuff that was in storage, some old interviews and some old photos. And this is one that I recently found. And I figured, it'd be a little fun to see if you guys could guess who it is that I'm standing with here. This is an interview that I did back in 2000. And this guy had a major hit at one point. A lot of people know the song. That's the only hint that I'm going to give you. I want to see if you can pick up on who it is. And I tell you what, if you can guess it, put it down in the comments. The first person who gets it right, I got nothing. I got nothing for you, but it's just for fun. You know what I mean? I'll reveal more at the end of the video, and I'll drop another hint later, but see what you can do with that one, all right? Okay, so up next is the worst comment of 2019 by a rock star, and it was none other than Pete Townsend who supplied this when he was giving an interview to Rolling Stone, and they asked him what he thought when he saw pictures of Keith Moon and John Entwistle, his fallen bandmates, and this is what he had to say. He said, "It's not going to make Who fans very happy, but thank God they're gone." And when asked why, he said, because they were fucking difficult to play with. They never, ever managed to create bands for themselves. I think my musical discipline, my musical efficiency as a rhythm player held the band together. Well, needless to say, Pete pissed off a lot of Who fans with this comment, but you have to keep in mind this is also coming from the same guy who said that he should be dead at this point in his life. Remember, I hope I die before I get old, that lyric from My Generation? Well, Pete had to give an apology because of so much backlash, and this is what he had to say. He said, I understand that a lot of longtime Who fans will be hurt by the way it comes across as a headline. No one can ever know how much I miss Keith and John as people, as friends, and as musicians. To this day, I am angry at Keith and John for dying. Sometimes it shows. It's selfish, but it's how I feel. I was being ironic in my own English way by suggesting it is something I'm glad about. You know, I remember at the time when I read the initial quote, I kind of knew what he was trying to say. It was just a real shitty way of getting it out, you know. He was basically trying to say that Keith Moon didn't keep time very well. He was all over the place, and John Entwistle's bass, he was all over the place too with his range. And so it was very hard for Pete to kind of find his own place, and he was the one that had to keep time, and he found it kind of exhausting. And that when those guys left, he kind of found himself again. And but you know, he just maybe didn't say it the best way. So now it's time for the best quote of the year, and it comes from Adam Lambert. I just wish I had known him. Talking about Freddie Mercury. I wish he were alive, so I didn't even have the gig. He was amazing. So yeah, Adam, I couldn't agree with you more, man. I really couldn't. I wish Freddie was alive so we didn't have to see you out there with Queen, or hear you, I should say. I'm not an Adam Lambert fan. Yeah, he can sing. I think he's better for Broadway and more theatrical kind of stuff. I don't think he fits in very well with Queen at all. Of course, I'm in the minority, it seems. There's lots of people out there who love Adam Lambert, love seeing him with Queen, and I got some comments about this on one of the videos I did about them this year. One of them said, I think you're a homophobic idiot. I'm a 78-year-old Queen fan. Adam Lambert brought them back for all my grandchildren. So there, I said it. Ha! Yeah, well, if I'm a homophobe, then I must have had a real problem when Freddie Mercury was fronting the band, right? I mean, come on. Carolina says, in my opinion, the only thing Adam Lambert brought was detractors to Queen. I'm 55 and saw Queen with Freddie live in Paris. That must have been 79. That was a good time. Then I saw videos of them with Adam, and I didn't like it at all. Nevertheless, I gave them a try last month, went to see him at the Global Citizen concert, and definitely hated it. I'm sorry for Brian and Roger. They have all my respect, but if I want to hear the Freddie Mercury sound live, I'll give all my money to Mark Martel and his Ultimate Queen Celebration Band. And yeah, I know what you mean about Mark Martel. I saw him last year. I did a video about that, and he was great. Yes, he imitates Freddie Mercury in some ways. He, you know, definitely moves like him, sounds like him, but he made the hair on my arms stand up when he did Love of My Life. And the only thing Adam Lambert would make me do is stand up and walk out. Oh yeah, before we get off the Queen topic, I just want to share something with you that I recently found in storage. This was my signed copy of The Game from Queen, signed by everybody, including Freddie. And this is an album that came from Bill Graham's estate. Bill Graham, the famous concert promoter, when he passed away, they let a lot of stuff go from his estate, a lot of signed stuff. And let me know what you think about Queen and Adam Lambert. Drop it down below in the comments, all right? Well, 2019 was a huge year for Motley Crue. They got a lot done this year, starting with their movie, The Dirt, which is something that they have been working on for many, many years, trying to find a company to put it out. They got that with Netflix, who bought the rights. And of course, this is a film that was based on their book, the notorious book filled with all their drug stories of, you know, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And, you know, I did a whole video about this film before it came out. And this video that I did became my most popular video instantly. Like within 5 days, it surpassed last year's most watched video, the Vinnie Vincent video. I mean, within 5 days, it did what Vinnie Vincent took 9 months to do. And of course, another reason why 2019 was so big for Motley Crue is because they came out of retirement. And this is a big deal because they went through great lengths to let us know that they were done, they were finished. They signed a contract saying that there's no way we could ever get back together and play again live. Well, unless we all agree and rip up the contract, which is exactly what they did. They blew it up in Motley Crue fashion, and now they're going on a stadium tour in 2020 with Def Leppard and Poison and Joan Jett. And to me, this whole thing just screams of a money grab. I mean, it's very, very pathetic when you look at it. And for this reason, I have to give Motley Crue the most egg on your face moment. And this is something that Nikki Sixx said back in 2014. If we did agree, the way we've set it up, including this conversation right now, this was at the press conference where they signed the contract, we'd have so much egg on our face, We have so much pride that alone would stop it. Yeah, so, pride, that's just words. Who cares about pride, right? Look, this whole contract was signed at a time when they were not getting along, and so they put the fans through all this bullshit, and now a few years later, they start getting along again, and now they're back to take your money. And it kind of reminds me of people that you may know in your life who, they get all upset about something and they say, I'm never going to do this again. I quit this. And then the next day or the next week, change their mind, and then you got to support them on that. They drain you. And I feel like Motley Crue is just draining the fans of their energy and their time, but they will fill stadiums this year. People are still willing to pay these guys, but to me, it just screams pathetic bullshit. However, we're not done with Motley Crue just yet. We have another award for them. They put an album out this year, the soundtrack to the Dirt movie, and on that they had a few brand new songs. One of them was a cover, and it was a cover of Madonna's Like a Virgin, and I gotta give them the worst cover of 2019 was covering Like a Virgin by Madonna. Now, if this is what sobriety looks like for Nikki Sixx, maybe he should get back on the junk. I don't know. I'm just saying something's got to happen here because, maybe they can collaborate with Madonna. Why not? And, I can see the hits now. Material Girls, Girls, Girls. Papa Don't Preach of the Devil. Come on, make it happen, guys. And thanks so much for the comments that you guys left on this video too, like Colin. He says, there'll be people who've only seen the Dirt who'll be expecting to see the band from the film, I'll bet. Yeah, they'll get one look at Vince Neil and be like, what is Vince's father doing on stage? Also, John says, Nikki also said in the book that he had a chance to go out with Demi Moore back in the day. He admitted on Howard Stern in 2005 that it wasn't true. Howard said, but it's in the book. Nikki said, oh, you know those books. And that raises a whole nother topic, which I talk about in this video that I made. I'll throw a link up to it. How much of this book, The Dirt, is true? We don't really know. There were some allegations against Nikki Sixx this year, and he kind of talked about how he was so fucked up on drugs. He regrets even doing the interviews for this book. So who knows how many of these stories are true, false, exaggerations, and this is what the band's reputation now is built on, just a lot of bullshit stories. And Lord Motorsport says, I wish Mick would use this as an opportunity to release his album. Would be good timing for him and would be good timing for me because I have been looking forward to it. Mick Mars rules. Yeah, I'm with you on this one, man. Definitely looking forward to Mick Mars's solo album that he's been working on in Nashville. And according to him, it's going to drop in 2020. So we'll see what happens with that. He also had to eat crow this year because a few years ago he said that if Motley Crue did break up the contract, that he would invite the fans to come for free. Well, of course, as we all know, one band member doesn't get to decide on free concert tickets, but he still had to put up with a lot of shit. I would invite the world to come for free can be interpreted in a few different ways. None clearly and specifically meaning free admission. For example, you have to make your way to the venue, get to the show for free popcorn, free of headaches, and there's admission at the door. That's right, and I would also add, you can become free of all the money that you've been saving up to lately. All right, up next is my favorite cover song of 2019, which is by the Bird and the Bee, who did Van Halen's Unchained. And not only did they do this song, but they released a whole album's worth of Van Halen songs, some better than others. Now, the Bird and the Bee are a duo, a pop indie duo out of LA, and very unlikely choice to do this kind of song. This is very much a Van Halen song. Lots of trademark stuff going on here, especially with David Lee Roth and the way that he delivers his vocals. And also there's that part in the middle where it's like, come on, Dave, give me a break, one break coming up. All of that is in this song. And they do a really good job covering all the bases and staying faithful to the original. So you got to check this out. Also, if you're a fan of Van Halen this past year has had more questions than answers. We started off the year wondering if there was going to be a reunion with Michael Anthony coming back into the fold. And I did a whole video about this where I really go in depth, so I'll throw a link up to that. But basically, the year went on. Sammy Hagar and his band, The Circle, which Michael Anthony is in, Sammy Hagar moved his whole tour around the summer to possibly accommodate a Van Halen tour with Michael Anthony, but nothing ever happened. Fast forward, a band meeting with Van Halen later in the year. I don't know what was said at this meeting, but David Lee Roth came away from it basically saying that Van Halen was over with, that they were finished, and he even announced a residency out in Vegas where he's going to be playing a lot of Van Halen tunes. And also, he's going to be touring next year with Kiss. He's going to be the opening act on their End of the Road tour for 2020. So David Lee Roth definitely going beyond this Vegas residency. He's going to be touring with Kiss, and this basically means that Van Halen has got nothing going on anytime soon. Now, there's also been a lot of speculation about Eddie Van Halen's health as a result of all this stuff going on or not going on. And although nothing has been said officially by the band, it appears that Eddie is going through some cancer treatments. It looks like his cancer has come back, and there's a lot of wait and see going on now in the Van Halen camp. His son, Wolfie, has come out and posted some family photos, basically trying to let the fans know his father is not on his deathbed. He was actually seen at a Tool concert this year. He even took a photo for a fan who was not a fan of Van Halen, a fan of Tool, and he wanted to just get his picture taken at the show. I don't think he knew that he was talking to Eddie, but Eddie took the photo for him, and Wolfie took a photo of that. Of course, you know, we hope that Eddie Van Halen gets through this and is able to get on stage and play one more time. And, you know, if they don't get back together with David Lee Roth, I wouldn't be shocked. Maybe this will pave the way for working with someone else, maybe Sammy. Who knows? Let me know what you think about this Van Halen debacle. Put it down below in the comments, all right? All right, time now for the best rejoin of 2019. I got to give that to John Frusciante coming back into the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He had been gone for the past 10 or so years. And of course, you know, John Frusciante is the guy that was with them when they put out some of their best albums, Mother's Milk, Blood Sugar Sex Magik, Californication, By the Way. And, you know, Josh Klinghoffer, who's been playing with them for the past 10 or so years, he's been great too. They put out some great material. The last album with like Dark Necessities, I thought that was a tremendously great song, one of their best. But great to see John back in the fold. They were supposed to have a new album this year. Who knows where that is now? But the Red Hot Chili Peppers will be doing some shows in 2020, so look for those. Now, as for the worst parting of ways, I got to give that to Sleater-Kinney with the exit of Janet Weiss. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Sleater-Kinney, but they're an alternative band from the 90s. They came back a few years ago with an album called No Cities to Love, which is a great, great album, one of my favorites from the past decade. And Janet Weiss is a powerhouse drummer. She just lays down the beat, and she ran into some creative issues when the band went to produce their new album, which came out this year. It was produced by St. Vincent, and basically her drums were marginalized, and it was more like a texture on the album and not so much the foundation. And so due to creative differences, Janet Weiss is out of the band, and really they won't be the same because she is sorely, sorely missed on this new album and also live in concert. Hopefully she will come back to the band, but who knows if that'll happen. But let me know what you think about this. If you're familiar with these guys, drop it down below. Up next is my favorite documentary of the year, and that's got to be Linda Ronstadt's The Sound of My Voice. What a great movie, and I can't recommend it enough. As a matter of fact, it's going to be making its television debut on CNN. They bought the rights to it, and they're going to be showing it on New Year's Day. So check your listings for that if you happen to be catching this video at that time frame. But yeah, this is a great movie if for no other reason than to give you a good history lesson as to what was going on in the industry throughout the 70s. You know, lots of great stuff here from Don Henley and Bonnie Raitt and Jackson Browne. Linda Ronstadt narrates it kind of, you know, gently throughout the movie, but mostly the story is told by a lot of her peers. And, you know, Linda was probably one of the first sex symbols in rock and roll, and she had to navigate this, you know, boys club. And she did really well covering songs. Like, she wasn't a songwriter, but she covered other people's songs very, very well. You know, like a song like You're No Good, which was one of her biggest hits. You know, when's the last time you ever heard the original? We don't even know what that sounds like practically. She owns that song. And, you know, after the 70s, she left rock and roll behind, and she went on to do the Pirates of Penzance, and she made some Spanish albums, some duets with Dolly Parton and Emmylou Harris. And Linda was much more than just a rock star. She had so many other talents, and she had no problem navigating from one to the other. Sadly, she got stricken with Parkinson's disease, so she hasn't been singing for the past 10 or so years. But this is a tremendous documentary. Can't recommend it enough. Definitely check it out. Now, the most shocking documentary I saw in 2019 has to be Leaving Neverland, which told the story of these two kids who got to know and spend a lot of time with Michael Jackson and the allegations of sexual misconduct around that. A very controversial film, and I got a lot of feedback from you guys, people on both sides of the fence here, as to how they came away from this movie feeling about Michael Jackson. You know, Don says that Michael Jackson's kindness destroyed him by the law and courts. Michael Jackson was acquitted. Michael is and was innocent. Those dickheads want millions. They won't get a penny. Michael was the musical genius. He is the one who is the victim. You know, with this kind of subject matter, I think that it's so complex that it's very easy to just write it off and say, oh, well, the court acquitted Michael, so he's innocent. You know, there's a lot of things going on here. There's intimidation and fear and loyalty going on with kids, and even the spell that Michael had the parents under, and how much they would allow their kids to spend time with him. I think that there's way too much going on here to ignore. And some more comments. You know, 2112 Relayer, this is too heavy of a subject for a channel like this. And Amy, hey Amy, she says, it is quite obvious that you were really bothered by this documentary. I didn't think it would affect the way I felt about Michael. We've always known he was weird, and I definitely knew it wouldn't affect the way I felt about his music. It did. And I feel the same way. I mean, it definitely affected the way that I felt about him. You know what I equate it to? It equates to having someone in your life that let you down, and you just kind of feel like you don't want to have much to do with them. You don't get excited about them. You don't go out of your way. You know, Michael Jackson's song comes on the radio or anything, I may turn it off more than I used to. You know what I mean? It feels like somebody you just don't really want to get behind. That's the way I came away from this whole thing. Let me know what you thought about that documentary. If you got a chance to see it, drop it in the comments below. Now, my favorite interview of the year has got to be Steve Perry on The Big Interview with Dan Rather. A very enlightening interview, and I must say that I really enjoy Dan Rather on these interviews. I'm glad that he's changed gears. He used to be for decades a hard news journalist, and he was a true journalist, and I'm glad that he jumped off of that train before it went to Shitsville. It seems like nowadays we just have a lot of propaganda pushers, but I'm not going to get into that. All I'm going to tell you is that Dan's got a great show here, and this episode with Steve Perry, even his most hardcore fans we're learning something new about Steve. For example, Steve talked about and confirmed that he has a daughter, and he's also a grandfather. We never knew that. And he also talks about how he was violated when he was a kid. He didn't go into specifics, but he talked about kind of hints that there was some abuse going on around the time when he was 8 or 9 years old. And there was another part of the interview where they go to Steve Perry's home studio, and they're talking about this song called We're Still Here, which is a great song from his latest album, Traces, and they're talking about the lyrics. And Dan Rather was talking about how he got something from the lyrics totally different than what Steve Perry intended. And Steve found that very interesting. So they were talking about how, you know, artists may love that they can write a song in such a way that it will impact someone else in a way that they didn't intend. That was a very interesting part of the interview. Overall, check it out. You know, I couldn't find it on YouTube or anything, but look up Access TV and look for the next time it comes on the air. Let me know what you thought about it. If you're a diehard Steve Perry fan, what did you think about the interview with Dan Rather? Drop it down below. All right, so this brings me to my favorite concert of 2019. I saw a lot of shows this year, and my favorite one was King Crimson at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. What a great performance. Aside from the brilliant performances, I can't help but remember Robert Fripp making it pretty clear that he didn't want anybody using their camera for anything until the very end of the show. And I was even wondering at one point if the fucking signs were going to stay up during the show, but luckily they didn't. But yeah, King Crimson, they have totally transformed themselves. They are the prog rock godfathers. They started 50 years ago, and they have reinvented themselves every time they come out. Brand new band members, some new, some old. They have 3 drummers in the current lineup. You want to talk about weapons of mass percussion? That is King Crimson. And so if you ever get a chance to check out these guys, especially if you know someone who loves drumming and everything, buy them a ticket, take them to this show. They'll be your new best friend, I'm telling you. And so this brings me to the biggest concert flop of 2019, and that's got to go to Woodstock 50. I mean, this thing was a shit show right from the beginning. They were having a problem with securing permits for the size of the audience that they were expecting. And then when they changed the venue from Watkins Glen, which I believe was the original spot that they were going to do it, you basically had this contract null and void, even though the artists were all paid up front. Once you change some details about the contract, it's basically over with. You can ask Motley Crue, they know all about contracts. But this was a disaster. And so by the time we get to the middle of the summer, this thing is supposed to happen in August, right? So we get to the middle of the summer, there's still no word about tickets and where this thing is going to be held. It had come down to the Merriweather Post Pavilion. That was the venue up in Maryland that they could find any place to do possibly anything. And by the time it got to that point, no artist wanted to do it, and the whole thing basically just flopped. And so that was a huge, huge disappointment. But there was a really sweet story that came out of the whole Woodstock debacle, and that is the story of Judy and Jerry. So as the story goes, it was August the 15th, 1969, which was my birthday, by the way. So while I was being born, Judy and her friend were traveling to go to Woodstock, and their car breaks down, and they hitchhike, and they get into a car with these other folks who are going to go see Woodstock. And this is where Judy meets Jerry, and they've been inseparable ever since. They wound up getting married, and they didn't take any photos of their time there at that show, but somebody happened to see a photo of them in a Woodstock documentary, and so this led to them taking a revised photo, 50 years later. So I thought that was a really sweet moment, probably the best thing that came out of the shit show that was Woodstock 50. Now, as I had mentioned, I got to see a lot of concerts this past year, and I did some reviews for some of them, but some of them I didn't get to talk about for one reason or another. One of them was the Stray Cats. I got to see them in August up at the Wolf Trap in Vienna, Virginia. Now, a lot of times we talk about how there's no more rock and roll bands out there. We don't have bands with original members. Well, the Stray Cats, they got both of those boxes checked. The same three guys from the 80s, and they play straight up rock and roll. I love the stand-up bass. I love that sound. These guys rocked. This was a fun show. If you ever get a chance to see the Stray Cats, check them out. Also, I got a chance to see Dweezil Zappa and his amazing band. He was on the Hot Rats tour, the Hot Rats album celebrating 50 years this year. Frank Zappa's, I believe it was his second solo album that blended the genres of rock and jazz. What a great show. Dweezil Zappa is an underrated guitar player. I think he's one of the best out there. Really enjoyed listening to him ripping up the guitar all night long. Great, great show. Another great show I got to see this year was The Fix. That was this month, actually, up in Northern Virginia at the Birchmere, and I really enjoyed this one. I mean, check out the set list. They played everything I could have asked for, except for Secret Separation. I was hoping that they would have done that, but otherwise, loved the show. And I've seen The Fix a couple of times before. I even got to interview the lead singer, Cy Curnin, back in 2000, and I recently came across the photo from that, and I'll throw it up for you. And he's a really good guy, and I just can't recommend The Fix enough. If you get a chance to go see him, check him out. All right, so have you figured this one out yet? All right, this is a photo of someone that I interviewed back in 2000, and I told you earlier that he had a big hit, and I'll be a little bit more specific. I'll give you a hint. He had a #1 hit in the 70s. All right, and some people think of him as a one-hit wonder, but he actually wasn't. Technically, he had 2 other top 40 hits. One of them was a top 10. So let me know who you think it is, and I'll give you the big reveal towards the end of this video. All right, so this brings me to my favorite song of the year, which I got to give to Jenny Lewis. Red Bull and Hennessy. Not a drink combination that I would recommend, but definitely a great song that I would recommend. And this is a song that features a great drum track. You have 2 great drummers here, Jim Keltner and Ringo Starr, laying down one heavy beat here. And a great guitar solo, great guitar work from Ryan Adams, too. Now, the thing about Ryan Adams is that earlier this year, he had some sexual misconduct allegations come up against him. And Jenny Lewis was not happy to learn about this because she worked closely with him for this album. She had no issues with him during the making of this album, but she did have some things to say about, all these allegations coming out. And so she says, the allegations are so serious and shocking and really fucked up. And I was so sad on so many levels when I heard. I hate that he's on this album, but you can't rewrite how things went. And yeah, the guitar work that Ryan puts down on this track reminds me of Lindsey Buckingham. As a matter of fact, this has a very Fleetwood Mac kind of feel. I've heard people talk about how there's a Stevie Nicks, Kate Bush vocal kind of thing going on. And so check it out if you get a chance. So let me know what your favorite songs were from 2019. Drop them down below. All right, now as for my least favorite song of the year, I got to give this to Dennis DeYoung and Jim Peterick and Proof of Heaven. This is a song that appeared on Jim Peterick's album, and I believe it's going to be on Dennis's forthcoming album, which will be out in 2020. And it's also going to be his final album. That's what he says. I just don't relate to this song lyrically, and I think it's a bit cheesy. But obviously, I'm in the minority. There's a lot of fans out there who really, really dig this song, and you guys let me know that too. HP Man writes, this song is magic, and I wish I had the mushroom there. I may like the song better. This is a long-lost Styx song. Sounds like Boat on a River and Lady, Grand Illusion. Also, John Malenga, he says, I think Proof of Heaven is a great song. As someone who thinks about eternity and the meaning of life, I can completely relate to the lyrics. And then there's this one. Peterick, is he okay? He looks like he should be whipping tigers in Vegas. And so I would also have to give this song the worst video of the year. I mean, this is just cheesy all around. Jim Peterick, looks like a Muppet. And, Dennis DeYoung has always been a cheeseball. So let me know what you think about the video. Drop it down below. Now, as for the best video of the year, I got to give this to Taylor Hawkins and the Coattail Riders. Taylor Hawkins is the drummer for the Foo Fighters. And every now and then he steps out and does a solo album. He just put one out this year. And his latest video for I Really Blew It is really a goof on the old Rod Stewart video, Tonight's the Night. And I think it was just really, really clever. The video also features Hall & Oates. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. It's just a really cool, clever video. It also features Perry Farrell, formerly of Jane's Addiction. And let me know what you guys think about this video if you've ever seen it. Give me your favorite video of the year. Drop it down below. All right, up next is the best album of 2019, and I got to give this to Tool for Fear Inoculum. This is a long-awaited album. Tool fans waiting, 13 years for this? It comes out, it goes to #1 on Billboard, moves nearly 300,000 copies, and I just admired the way this album went to the top, the old-fashioned way. There was no radio airplay. The CD wasn't bundled in with ticket sales. This was the Tool fan base showing up, buying the album, putting it to #1, and I really admire that. And, we live in an age now where the charts are so screwy. The charts are being manipulated because they're bundling in CDs with ticket sales. Like for instance, I didn't buy any CDs this year, but yet I have 2 of them. How does that happen? Well, it's because when you buy a ticket to go see a show, you get a CD in the mail. For instance, I got this here from Sammy Hagar and The Circle, The Space Between. Now, you'll see stuff about how this album did well in the charts. I think it was Sammy's one of his highest performing solo albums, or one of his highest performing albums outside of Van Halen, but it's only because it was bundled in with ticket sales. And then also the new Who album. I got this one here too. I got this email from Ticketmaster not that long ago saying, where do you live? We'll send you a CD because you bought a ticket to the show. So new Who album here. And as you'll also notice, they're in plastic. I haven't even opened them. That's another thing. I've heard both of these albums, but I didn't need to open up the CDs to hear them because you can hear them on YouTube and all that. So things have definitely changed. All right, up next, the most overhyped artist of 2019. I gotta give this to Billie Eilish. I just don't get it. What the hell is the big deal with this chick? I mean, if mumbling into a microphone is a chart topper nowadays, I mean, we really are in some serious shit. I mean, she looks like she could be swallowed by her clothes at any second. She looks like, she just woke up and was like, you know what? I like this bedspread. I think I'll just wear it today. All right, so to put some perspective on Billie Eilish and the damage that she's been doing to the Billboard charts lately, she's the first artist born in the 2000s to ever have a #1 hit album. And also, get this, the first artist ever to have 14 songs in the Hot 100 at the same time. Now think about that, 14 songs in the Billboard Hot 100. You know, when I was growing up, if you were an artist that had 14 songs that ever hit the top 100, you had a career. That was great. You know, some artists who are huge never even had that. And so it just kind of gets back to what I was just talking about. The Billboard charts have been manipulated, and it's a whole lot different than the way it used to be. Let me know what you think about Billie Eilish and all this stuff. Drop it down below. All right, so now I'm going to reveal my most popular video of 2019, and as like last year, it goes to Vinnie Vincent. And this video I did about a birthday bash that was supposed to be coming in August of this year. I filmed it in my backyard, and it went on to become the biggest video that I ever made, actually. It even went past the Motley Crue video that I talked about earlier. You know, it really boggles my mind how Vinnie Vincent has been the #1 topic on this channel. I certainly never intended that, and it's the second year in a row. And look, I just talk about Vinnie because there's something interesting there to talk about. And that's really the reason why I talk about anything, is because I find it interesting, and so I talk about it. And however popular it gets is because of you guys feeding off of it. And I'm sure there will be more Vinnie videos because he's not done yet. He's going to have more birthday bashes, and there's going to be more bullshit that surrounds it. So I'm sure there'll be more to talk about. He just had the Merry Metal Christmas in Nashville. It just happened. You know, there was karaoke. There was, you know, like merchandise that you can buy. And it's just like, you know, there was no performance of any songs. There was no performing with anybody of any count. It was pretty much just a Vinnie Vincent expo. That's what he's been reduced to now. It's just him with a lot of his stuff on display, you know, shredding to a room filled with 40 people, charging $500 a head. And he's in this position because he can't get anybody to work with him. You know, he's burned so many bridges. He's such an unpleasant guy to work with that he can't find anybody to play with. And even if he does, it's sure to go off the rails. And I'm sure the fans, you know, how many times are you going to milk the fans? I've heard that there's going to be a Valentine's Day show. That's what's going to be next. I don't know where it's going to be, but, you know, how many times are your hardcore fans going to pay $500 a head to, you know, watch you shred and not play any songs and do karaoke and do Q&A? Like, how long can you keep that going? And also, Vinnie has been extended an invite by Kiss themselves to perform at their very last show on their End of the Road tour, which is going to be in 2021. I think it's in June in New York City. They haven't given the venue yet, but this invite's been extended to Ace Frehley and Peter Criss too. And we'll see what happens. You know, this is Vinnie Vincent's moment. He can get on stage in front of a lot of fans, do his stuff. He can wow audiences, and he can do whatever he wants to. Problem is, like I said, nobody wants to work with him. So let me know what you think about this whole Vinnie Vincent mess. Drop it down in the comments below. And, you know, in addition to some of these artists just going away totally, many of them are not, you know, aging all that gracefully. We're getting to see them fall apart practically before our eyes. So let's do a health check roundup of some of our favorite classic artists. We've got Peter Frampton. You know, he has a degenerative muscle disease that has basically forced him off the road. He does have some European dates next year, but he is done here in the States. We have Lindsey Buckingham, who earlier this year, you know, had some heart issues. He had open heart surgery, and his wife earlier this year sent a message to the fans saying that his surgery went well, but unclear about his vocal cords that were damaged, and you know, not sure if it's permanent or not. But I guess the silver lining to all of this is that Lindsey Buckingham does have a show scheduled for next year, so that's a good sign that he is able to sing again, and his wife has indicated that all is well in the Buckingham camp. So really glad to see that. She did have some interesting choice of words for Mick Fleetwood, though. I'll share that with you. She said, "Mick Fleetwood, you are so busy telling the world how unhappy the band was. It would have been nice if you told Lindsey that. He's still wondering what happened. You are a dishonest coward, and I have zero respect for you. That goes for all of you, Fleetwood Mac. You really suck." Also, the Stones had to reschedule their U.S. tour, their first in many years, due to Mick Jagger. He had to have a heart valve replacement surgery. That went well. Stones went back on the road this year, did their U.S. tour, and Mick seems to be doing all right. Megadeth's Dave Mustaine, he announced that he had cancer, currently going through treatments, and seems to be doing okay. Frankie Banali of Quiet Riot revealed this year that he is battling stage 4 cancer, and certainly hope that he pulls through that. Also, we got Huey Lewis, last year announced that he had hearing issues and he can't perform. This year he talks about how he was suicidal, trying to deal with the fact that he can't sing or really listen to music. Now, Steve Lukather of Toto announced this year that Toto is pretty much done because David Paich, the keyboard player, vocalist for the song Africa, he had a seizure on the tour bus last year, and that pretty much took him off the road for good. So, Steve has said that if Toto does come back, it's not going to be the same lineup. Basically, Toto will never be the same again if they even come back at all. So, very sad to hear about that. Ozzy Osbourne feels lucky to be alive after, he suffered pneumonia and a major fall at his house. But he'll be back on the road in 2020. New album on the way, too. Also, Meatloaf. Did you hear about what happened to him? He fell off the stage in Texas, broke his collarbone. Check this out. He was on stage talking to an audience, and it's like, don't. Meatloaf, hope you're doing all right there, bud. All right, so are you ready for the big reveal? Are you ready to find out who the hell it is I'm standing with in this photo from 2000? I went to go interview none other than Rupert Holmes. That's right, the Pina Colada guy. He had a #1 hit single in 1979 with the Pina Colada song. And it's actually 40 years ago now that he had this. It was the last #1 hit single of the 70s. And so, 40 years ago at this time of year, as we get ready to head into 2020, he had the #1 song in the land. It wasn't his only hit. He had another one called Him. It was a top 10 hit, which you may recall. And when he signed my CD, you can see how he signed it there. I thought that was pretty funny. Now, if you couldn't guess who it was that I was standing with in that photo, don't beat yourself up too much. Rupert Holmes, not exactly the most identifiable, artist out there. He kind of looks like the guy next door. And to my surprise, he actually was. When I got the call to do this interview and I saw where I had to go, I could literally walk to go see him. He lived just like 3 blocks away from me in Scarsdale, New York, which is where I was living at that time. I remember I was getting ready to move. I was moving the next day when I went to go interview him. And he was just a real nice guy, really, really down to earth. And, he's no longer in pop music or anything. He's been gone for quite a while, does a lot with doing scores for theater and stuff like that. But let me know down below in the comments if you knew who old Rupert Holmes was and if you can remember the Pina Colada song from 40 years ago. All right, so we're getting down to the home stretch of this video. Thanks so much for sticking with this video after all this time. And this is a sad part of the video, folks. Get your Kleenex, get your tissues. We're going to say goodbye to some artists that we lost in 2019. Some of them, are going to be leaving us. They're reaching 80 years old. They're just, not in good health. And we're going to be losing them at some point. But some of these artists are just gone way too young. The saddest story of 2019 for me was hearing about the tragic loss of the UK band Hers. Have you ever heard of them, or did you hear about this story? This is a indie duo from the UK. And they were just about to embark on their first tour of the US. And what's sad is we see their Instagram, we're officially on US soil, and they're looking forward to hitting the road here, playing their first shows. And then we learned that after a show in Arizona, they got into a head-on collision with a pickup truck that didn't have its lights on, and the band and their manager were killed instantly. And it was just a shock to their fans. And I hadn't heard about them before. This is one of those things where I heard about them, and then the more I learned about them and the more that I listened to their music, it becomes more and more heartbreaking, because you feel like you're getting to like these guys and you realize they're over. Their lives have been cut short. I saw this one great performance of this song called What Once Was, and I'm going to put a link to it in the companion playlist. What a beautiful song. What a great song. A unique sound that these guys had. And, definitely check these guys out. In reading the comments on various videos, you can just read the heartbreak. One person saying, "No, this is not happening. They were my favorite. How could this happen? And I thought they were alive. How does nobody know about this? Why is nobody making a bigger deal about this?" Somebody else saying, "This destroys my soul. This truly hurts so much. They were so young and talented. Here I was searching if they had new music, only to see that they died, literally broken." And here's someone else who had just seen them at their final show. Hours before, I saw them singing and livening it up at the Rebel Lounge with their music, and now they're gone, and I'm completely destroyed. And here's someone else, Moonchild, echoing what I was just talking about. "I absolutely hate that I'm just now listening to their music. What an awful and tragic way to discover a band." Another, "I've never been so sad for the death of someone I never met." And then there was one post of a truck driver from Arizona who says that he was traveling Interstate 10 when your friends and loved ones passed me, and a few seconds later, the collision with a truck with no headlights. Myself and another driver emptied our fire extinguishers, but to no avail. Wish we could have done more. As I sat at the scene, I prayed for those souls I didn't know. So yeah, this was just a real tragedy, and just really bothered me after I heard about it. Still does weigh on my mind when I think about it. Let me know what you think about this whole thing. Drop it below. We also lost Ginger Baker in 2019, and we were kind of expecting it. I mean, we know he wasn't in that great of health. He had just turned 80, and when I think about Ginger, I'm glad that he was able to get back with Eric Clapton and Jack Bruce to reunite with Cream, I think around 2005. Eric Clapton wanted to do it before they both passed away, or before they all did. I mean, Eric Clapton's even getting up there. But, now both Jack Bruce and Ginger are gone. Ginger Baker, not exactly the easiest guy to get along with. A lot of people think that he was just this big dick, and it depends on who you ask. Certainly he had his differences with Jack Bruce and even his own son. They didn't mend fences until, Ginger was on his deathbed. But, one thing about Ginger Baker is that he was known for being a great rock drummer, even though he really had his roots in jazz. When he was coming up on the scene, there were no other rock drummers to look at. They didn't exist. He looked to the great jazz drummers who were the most flashy and the most interesting at that time. And so that was his style. He had a very good sense of time, and a really great legendary drummer who influenced so many classic drummers. And definitely check out his documentary, Beware of Mr. Baker, which came out a few years back. I'll throw a link to it down in the playlist. If you want to get a sense of his generosity, check out what he did to the guy who came to interview him. Socked him in the fucking face. That's right, bloodied his nose. I think he even broke it. And even Chad Smith of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who did an interview with him, got to see what it was like when he tried to even light his cigarette. So yeah, Ginger Baker, quite the character in rock history. And at the end of this video here in just a bit, I'm going to roll a montage of some of the bigger names that we lost in 2019. Can't do them all, but I've picked out some of the biggest ones, and I'm going to be getting to that in just a bit. Before I do, I just want to once again thank you so much for being a part of this channel, and for liking videos and commenting and subscribing. And even if you don't subscribe, thanks for watching. I know you're out there. I know you're out there. And you know what? It doesn't take much. Just hit that button, that subscribe button, and leave some comments for this video. Would love to hear them. Would love to hear your best and worst of 2019. And I'll be back soon with some more videos. And let's say goodbye to some great talents that we lost in 2019. And I'll see you next time in 2020. Take care.